we're live. I think so. I don't know. OBS is being weird. I can't see. There you go. Why is it 2? That's odd. Okay, there you go. Alright, for some reason I don't have the chat up. That's odd. Huh. Wow, guess OBS is just weird today. Yeah, that's really stupid. Oh, there it is. Never mind. Figured it out. Okay. I'm extremely tired today. That you can tell. They like to do these things early in the morning. And I mean like early. I'm usually in bed at this time of day, but I'm not. Last time I woke up this early to watch a Starship launch, they canceled it. They had a frozen valve issue. Let's hope that they fixed that issue. Minutes from now, great. My light. It's okay, it's actually starting now, great. This cinematic right here is actually pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. Also, it's really cool.
Good morning. On your screen is a live view of Starship as it awaits its second attempt at our first ever integrated flight test from Starbase, Texas. If all goes well, we hope to see our Starship spacecraft and Super Heavy booster,
That's all I'm
which
gonna
we
say,
collectively call Starship, lift off together for the first time in exactly 33 minutes from now. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a Space Operations Engineer here at SpaceX. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that we stood down from our initial launch attempt on Monday, and that was due to a frozen pressurization valve on the Super Heavy booster.
SpaceX teams investigated the issue and determined that this valve had some moisture in it, which caused the valve to freeze up when we were loading super chilled liquid oxygen into the booster.
Now, these valves are super important because we actually need a pressurant to go back into the tank as we consume propellant, and we actually use a pressurant that comes from the Raptor engines. It's heated down there and then put back in the tank. And so a frozen valve there would be a problem during the launch.
Yeah, and that's important. You can think of it like drinking out of a thin plastic water bottle. If you're chugging that water, it crinkles if you don't let air back into it. So we use that hot exhaust gas from the Raptor engines to refill that consumed volume as propellant is depleted. So it was a great find by the countdown, and that's why we have a countdown, is to allow us to find those issues prior to liftoff. So all of that being said, our teams learned a lot over the last 48 hours,
nice,
and we are ready to give it another go.
Oh, that's so cool.
As many of you know,
this
Starship is the
really cool. It
largest
looks like a
vehicle
render,
developed to
actually.
date by SpaceX.
But it's not.
It
It's
will
real.
be the
It's
world's
real.
most
It's real.
powerful
It's real.
launch vehicle once fully developed and have twice the thrust of the Saturn V rocket. But the key breakthrough with Starship is that it will be fully reusable and capable of carrying up to 150 metric tons of payload to orbit in a reusable configuration and up to 250 metric tons when expendable.
Now, for context, Falcon 9 is only partially reusable. We recovered the largest part of the rocket, that's called the first stage, but we don't recover the second stage. And Falcon 9's heaviest payload to date is just over 17 metric tons. So 150 to 250 metric tons on Starship is an order of magnitude greater in terms of the payload capacity. Now, for today's test, we will be the first of many as we work towards transitioning Starship from a developmental into an operational program. And the primary objective today is to gather as much data as we can around the fully integrated vehicle. Now, while we have flown the Starship spacecraft in the past, it is going to be the first attempt of Super Heavy and the first opportunity for us to validate how the two vehicles operate together.
Oh, we are so excited for this. The purposes for today's flight, we will consider any data received that helps inform and improve future builds of Starship as a success. From a milestone standpoint, our main goal is to clear the pad. Every milestone beyond that is a bonus. The further we fly, the more data we can collect.
Now, if it does all go well, then we'll expect the Super Heavy to light up its 33 Raptor engines at the base of the vehicle and lift off, clear the pad away down from in Starbase, Texas, and then it'll go into ascent. About 3 minutes into its ascent, we're going to expect to see Super Heavy separate from the Starship. It'll perform a flip maneuver, and then it'll execute a boost back burn, and we're going to be targeting a hard landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And while that's happening, we hope to see Starship's 6 second stage engines ignite and watch as Starship coasts for
Personally,
about an hour
I think we're going to see
at
Starship
altitudes ranging
actually make it
between
into
150
orbit.
and 250 kilometers
Surviving
before
re-entry is a
re-entering
whole
Earth's
different
atmosphere
story.
and
Probably
make its
not.
own hard landing in the
But
Pacific Ocean,
it's
about
definitely getting into orbit. Well,
250-ish
no,
kilometers
definitely not.
offshore. Now,
There's a good chance they'll survive.
We are not really expecting many
they'll-
camera
they'll-
views after
they'll probably
separation.
reach orbit.
That is to say, if we even make it that far. But we do promise that whatever views we do have, we will bring them to you live.
Yep. We have a couple of ground stations along the way, so if we are able to get good telemetry, assuming we make it that far into the ascent, then of course those will be available on the stream. And also worth mentioning today, like the whole just getting the vehicle off the pad is a complex endeavor. We are going to be trying to reduce complexity by attempting those hard water landings instead of trying a normal landing like you're used to on Falcon 9.
Exactly. We are not attempting to recover these vehicles, so yeah, hard landings in store for both.
Now, in a little bit, we'll take a closer look at the vehicle and the launch pad, but first...
They're going to
the
get
teams
destroyed.
have
There's
been
no
doing
matter
a
what's going to
tremendous
happen.
amount of
They're
work over
going
the
to
last
get
few
destroyed.
months. In fact, there's a great shot of our Hawthorne team.
Oh, look at
They're
those
bright
crazy
and
people
early
up,
to watch the
up
launch.
this early in the morning. Holy
Teams
crap.
have been prepping really for the last few days, especially to try to get into today's launch attempt.
And here you can see a live view of the South Padre Amphitheater, where both SpaceX employees, friends and family, and members of the public are gathering to watch Starship lift off. And we can see the crowds are gathering there as well. And of course, we want to give a shout out to the SpaceX team. You see them there on screen, members of our launch command, our Star Command Center. That is our Star-based Launch Control Center.
Yep, those are the operators today who are going to be reviewing all the data and, of course, giving us the go, no-go poll, checking the status to try to get in today's launch attempt just around 27 minutes from now.
And one thing I do want to mention, I misspoke. It's not the South Padre Amphitheater. It's the Cameron County Amphitheater.
Now, the entire Starship structure on your screen is made from stainless steel. When it's stacked, it stands about 120 meters tall. It's about 9 meters around. And we have this awesome video that shows you just how big that is. You can see one of our technicians there doing some final prep work in advance of today's test. And man, there's the 120-meter monster.
Holy crap.
The person just keeps getting
This thing is
smaller
huge.
and smaller.
It's
Now,
the
just
biggest
like Falcon
rocket
9, Starship
in the
has
world.
2 stages, which
It's
we'll
going
talk more
to
about
surpass
those in a minute.
SLS in a few
In
minutes.
addition to those 2
Well,
stages,
when I mean
Starship
a few minutes,
actually
I mean
has
half
a
an hour
third
from now.
stage, which we call Stage 0. It consists of all the launch pad infrastructure built around the rocket, as you can see there on your screen, and it's truly an engineering feat in its own right.
Yeah, we've got a great shot there of the various different components of it, the pad, the infrastructure, all that is required to get into filling the tanks. Now, let's talk about the Super Heavy. Its name says everything. It's super, it's heavy, it's super heavy. When it's operational, it'll be responsible for providing the power to escape that mighty gravitational pull of Earth that we've got here and take Starship into orbit.
All right, guys, I'm
The
currently
booster
live
itself
on YouTube
stands about
watching the
70
Starship
meters
launch.
tall and is roughly the
say
same
hi.
height as a fully
It's gonna be
integrated
awesome.
Falcon
This
9,
thing will be
which is
taking
just
off in
so
25
crazy to
minutes
me.
from now, so I highly
But
recommend that you
this
join the stream as
Super
soon as
Heavy
possible.
booster has a diameter roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much larger engines. We have a beautiful view here. This is one of my favorite views that we're going to get today. Those are our 33 Raptor engines at the base of these Super Heavy boosters.
It's a lot of
And
engines,
you can see
dude.
they're in a couple
Holy
of different rings here. So we've got the outer ring of 20 static engines. They're going to be providing a huge amount of thrust today to lift off the entire stack. But then we've got the 13 gimbaling engines in the middle, and they're going to be providing the tilt maneuvers and also helping to reorient the booster as it comes back later in today's flight.
Yeah, and when we say gimbal, it's basically tilting or almost wiggling the engines a few degrees in either direction to allow the booster to steer itself, just as you said, Shiva.
And
degrees and in either direction,
And we'll get some great shots later of actually a wiggle test that we perform ahead of liftoff, just to make sure that all those engines are able to control their full range of control authority.
One thing to note, those Raptor engines are completely designed and manufactured in-house. They are, as many of you know that have been following along, they are a reusable methane oxygen staged combustion type engine. So it's a lot of words there. And ultimately, that staged combustion means that we combust the propellant in stages that we kind of pre-combust them in a pre-burner, and by doing so it allows the engine to be more efficient, i.e. more powerful.
Yeah. Now, like Falcon 9, the Super Heavy has 4 grid fins to assist with orienting itself in its return back to Earth. We got a shot of them there beneath the Starship's aft flaps.
Falcon 9 has
now,
some
as
like
we talked about earlier, Super Heavy is not going to be attempting a land landing today. But with this flight test, we're still trying to get as much data as we can. We're focusing on the fundamental systems and operations, so that's the liftoff.
But they're not doing
portion.
that this flight either.
But we are going to try to get some data on how the fins work and for that water landing that Super Heavy is going to be making after ascent.
I love that great view of the fins there. Now, Starship, or the spacecraft, is the second stage. I can't believe that
Starship is actually a real
rocket, of the vehicle.
This is insane.
It's designed for carrying passengers and cargo to Earth orbit and beyond. It stands about 50 meters tall, which is a little taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's comprised of 6 Raptor engines, 3 sea level and 3 vacuum engines, which are optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. And they provide a maximum of 258,000 tons of thrust in vacuum. Spacecraft is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude, which you can see those 2 forward flaps there on your screen now. So they help control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and
camera
enable
footage is a
precise
little bit
landing
foggy,
at
though.
the intended location. Now, one thing we got to mention, the heat shields. They are iconic. Starship is wrapped in a heat shield, which is composed of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during that atmospheric entry. And that's really important because the temperatures can be as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The hex-shaped tiles, like the ones that Shiva and I have, roughly make up about 2/3 of the vehicle. We can see that we have some different shapes. Mine is slightly curved. As you can imagine, it sits on the curved portions of the Starship vehicle.
Now, the one that I've got is a hexagonal tile that's more flat, and it's really used for the flatter structures on the vehicle. And we need a heat shield because when you're coming back in from re-entry, we're going supersonic, we're compressing all the air ahead of us. That ends up causing a lot of heating along the surface, and
a lot of
without a heat
tiles.
shield, that
Holy
would go
crap.
straight into the structure.
Yeah, one thing that's amazing to me, especially when I first picked up one of these heat shield tiles, is that they're so light. They almost feel like they're
light?
made out of foam. They're that light, and
Really?
they kind of sound like it too. And one thing that
Really?
we do want to
That's
mention,
interesting.
in order to reject the maximum amount of heat during that entry, like Shiva was just saying, they're black, and that's because black helps reject that heat that is building up on the exterior of the heat shield.
Now, Starship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing as opposed to taking off and landing like an airplane. And that's because that's really important because we don't have runways on the moon or Mars. Fortunately,
Very
at
true.
those destinations, the gravity is not as high as it is here on Earth. On Mars, the gravity is just 1/3 of what it is here on Earth, and on the moon, it's just a sixth.
So
in
Starship
both of
is
those
basically an
Starship with
SSTO
just
or a
its
single
engine
stage to orbit
can
at that
take off
point.
without needing the super heavy booster like we do need here on planet Earth.
Now, for today's test, Starship does not have its landing legs attached because, like we said before, it won't be returning anywhere. Starship is expected to make a very hard ocean landing, which, if we even make it that far,
Does that mean that they're going
and
to try,
manage to
since
get
they
any
said that there's
views,
no legs
it will
on this
certainly make
specific
for a
Starship,
very
does that
exciting
mean that
end
Starship
to
will
today's
get legs
test.
eventually?
At this point in time,
I mean,
we
yeah, you
are
need to if you're gonna land on
20
Mars
minutes,
or on the
or just
moon,
over
but
20
still.
minutes from
Are they
liftoff.
still planning on
Let's check
catching
in with
the
John
ship
Innsbrucker for
out of
a
the
status
air, or are they
update. Hey,
actually
John,
gonna
how's
land
it
it on a
looking?
launch
Thanks,
pad
Kate.
now?
I'm John Innsbrucker,
Oh, that's the
Principal
guy with the
Integration
sick voice.
Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently loading propellant
Oh, this
from the
John
ground
guy is
system
awesome.
into both the first and second stages. Now, both vehicles use the same two propellants. That commonality helps build the reliability. And the fuel today is liquid methane. And that's at a temperature of just over 100 kelvins. That's about minus 272 degrees below zero on the Fahrenheit scale. Now, liquid methane is a different fuel from Falcon 9. That booster uses RP1 kerosene. However, our oxidizer is liquid oxygen, and that's the same as Falcon 9. Because there is no oxygen in space to support combustion, we have to bring our own. Now, leading up to where we are right now, we had a go-no-go
it's kind of
poll that was
windy. That's
conducted
not
just
good.
after
Not
T-minus
good at
2
all.
hours.
It's kind of windy.
And once the team
Whoa.
gave their goes, we started loading propellants onto the booster. At
Dude, this is like a
1 hour
Fortnite
and
event, but
39
in real
minutes.
life.
At T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes, we began propellant loading of the ship. The second stage you can see on your screen right there. Now, propellant loading of the Starship's second stage main tanks completed at about the T-minus 27-minute mark, at which time we then began loading the 2 header tanks in the nose of the second stage. Now, at T-minus 3 minutes, when the first stage super heavy propellant loading completes, that means we'll have all the propellant on the rocket, and the vehicle will be fully loaded with over 10 million pounds of propellant. Now, right now, at T-minus 19 minutes and counting from liftoff, the weather and winds are looking good. We have been watching the ground level winds. They're at 18 miles an hour. As the morning continues, they will increase, but that is below our limits right now. We're also looking at upper altitude winds. We're waiting for one more balloon, but we believe that we're going to be go. On the launch vehicle itself, the teams, the good news, they're not working any issues right now.
Until
But
they
if for
find
some
another
reason
valve issue,
we do
yeah.
not make our test flight today if we have to hold, we have a backup launch window. However, we're not sure when it would be. It could be 24 or 48 hours after today.
Oh, that
it will
would
depend
suck.
on how far we get into the countdown. But right now, heading for a T0 at 8:28 Central, 13:28 Universal Time. Kate, everything is looking good.
Awesome news. Now, in order to make life multiplanetary, we need a fully reusable vehicle that's capable of carrying a huge amount
That's
of
true.
cargo and a
That's
lot
true.
of people.
You don't want to
to
use an
orbit
airplane
and have
once
a
then
pretty
throw it
quick
away, you
turnaround.
know?
The idea is to effectively reuse launch vehicles just like airplanes.
Yep.
Yeah, imagine
Yep.
if you had to wait for a new airplane to be constructed every time you wanted to fly. You'd rarely go anywhere, and for most of us, it would be completely unaffordable.
Nope.
In order for us to get to Mars and back with lots of people, lots of cargo, multiple times, reusability really is a must.
In advance of our first missions to Mars, Starship will execute a number of missions with both cargo and people, starting with Earth orbit and eventually expanding to the Moon and beyond.
Now, in the near term and a bit closer to home, Starship will also be critical to other programs. Once fully operational, it'll deliver the full-size and upgraded version of our Starlink satellites, and that's super exciting because our next-generation satellites represent a step forward in Starlink's capabilities and will allow us to connect millions of more people around the world with high-speed internet to watch launch webcasts.
Such an exciting future ahead of us, but first, let's talk a little
I'm
about
back.
how we got to where we are today.
Now, Starship's testing ramped up in July of 2019 with our Starhopper prototype, sort of a short version of the Starship that we see today. There's a great photo of it.
Oh, yeah.
It was just
That's
over
actually a really good
18
photo.
meters tall. It had a single Raptor engine, and we had it to test fly and perform low-level altitude maneuvers and attempt landing.
Oh, that was back in
The initial
2016.
test flight or hop reached about 20 meters
Dude,
in
that's where the
altitude.
pad
That was
is right
followed
now.
by
That's
the
where the
one that you've
launch
got
pad
on
is
your
right
screen
now.
here. This was our 150-meter altitude hop. We went up, took a little jaunt away, about 100 meters or so away from the launch pad, used that Raptor engine to fly and actually land. And actually, this hopper is actually down at Starbase now.
Yeah, I love
Yep.
this shot. It's just so fun to see it fly. After a series of 150-meter hop tests with earlier prototypes, the Starship program saw a major breakthrough during a test flight of the vehicle known as serial number 8, or SN8. You can see it there on your screen now. In December 2020, SN8 demonstrated a first-of-its-kind controlled aerodynamic descent and landing flip maneuver. 2 words, belly flop. The SN8 prototype rose to an altitude of 12.5 kilometers.
That's just so
or
cool.
7.8
You can't
miles,
convince me
and
that
conducted
this is
a
not
belly
cool,
flop
bro.
maneuver, which you see there.
It's like a robotic
during its
skydiver.
descent. While it didn't stick
This
the
is also
landing,
really
the
cool.
test was a major milestone in the development of Starship. In fact, we should be able to see that unfortunately failed landing.
Boom.
Boom.
Nice.
It was fun to watch, though.
Rapid unscheduled disassembly, but learned a lot of data. Now, the testing continued on to prototype
there's the
serial
start
number
of
9.
the
It
orbital
took
launch
a
pad right here.
10-kilometer flight. It's about 6.2 miles up. In February of 2021, we had a nominal
is so
ascent.
cool.
We
So
executed
cool.
the engine cutoffs once we got to the top of the altitude window. We did that belly flop maneuver, which is so much more fun to say than controlled descent, aerodynamic maneuver. That was all stable, but unfortunately, we had a dramatic end on this flight as well. We had a failure on one of the engines that resulted in another pretty large fireball. But what was really cool about both of those flights was how much we learned just between serial numbers 8 and 9 and how quickly we were able to achieve our primary objectives in those 2 flights. In addition to that,
I
we
watched
just-
this one
we got
live.
so much data that demonstrated control of the vehicle and that
Well, I
subsonic
also
regime.
watched
Ultimately, we
SN.
performed 9 Starship high-altitude
I actually
test
watched
flights in
SN9
total,
live.
And then, as you see on
And
your
then
screen there,
SN11
in
live.
May of 2021, SN15 launched
Wait, it was
from
SN10
Starbase,
I watched
reached an
live
altitude
first,
of
yeah.
about 10 kilometers, performed
And
a
then
number
this
of
is the
maneuvers,
last flight they
and
did.
safely returned to
did,
the launch
yeah.
site. This was the first Starship prototype to fly, control its descent, safely land, and be recovered in one piece.
And people were cheering like crazy
I was
after
one of
that
them.
test flight. Now, having achieved those successes in our suborbital campaign, one of the next big challenges is for the upper stage when it comes to reusability and surviving the hypersonic, really high heating phase of entry. Combined with the later ability to refill Starship's tank with propellants, the fuel and oxygen, while we're on orbit, that will enable us to have a fully reusable transportation
Imagine if they
system
just do that in the
that's
next
designed
flight.
to carry both crew
Like,
and
they just send
cargo
up
on
the
long-duration
next
missions,
Starship, like
interplanetary flights,
SN25
and will
was
help
called, and
humanity
they build
get
it
to
in
the moon,
SN26.
travel to
Actually, no,
Mars,
that's not
and
true,
beyond
because they
in
already
our solar
have,
system.
This is all
They already
just
have, like, other
basically
Starship vehicles,
our
but it
path
doesn't have
of
heat shields-
progress,
heat shields
basically
or fins
an
on it.
iteration on each vehicle. And that iterative process is a core part of how we work here at SpaceX.
Oh, so
we like
cool.
to test early and often, publicly as well in our case. And that's both for hardware and software. And while it doesn't always go as expected, we learn so much from it, and it informs our next attempt.
Yeah, we learn a lot from actually putting the vehicle through flight-like tests. Even the test on Monday gave us an opportunity to learn more about the
even though it
vehicle
kinda
into
sucked,
today's
we
launch
really
attempt,
learned a lot
and so
from
far
that.
things are looking really good. Now, we are continuing into our countdown. We're about T-minus 12 minutes to go. I think it's a perfect time for another check-in with John Insparker. How's it going, John?
Well, Shiva, the good news is that the nets are quiet. The teams are currently working. No significant launch vehicle issues. You can see the T clock there on your screen, T-minus 12 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. Propellant loading is continuing on both the Super Heavy and the ship stages. You can see the graphic on the left-hand side of the screen. Most recently, we began loading liquid oxygen and liquid methane fuel into the header tanks on Starship. Those are two small tanks just underneath the nose of the second stage. Now that started at T-minus 27 minutes. That'll be wrapping up at about that will be wrapping up about T-minus 9 minutes. Now the Starship second stage main fuel and LOX tanks are loaded for flight right now. The Super Heavy first stage booster propellant loading is continuing, and that'll go till about T-minus 3 minutes. We're underway with engine chill as we get ready for T0, and we're also configuring the launch pad for liftoff. The booster hold downs have been unlatched. They'll be ready to retract at liftoff. And the second stage quick disconnect is beginning its configuration for release. The methane and liquid oxygen propellants currently going to the second stage go through that quick disconnect. That's that arm that reaches out from the tower to the base of the second stage. The SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard. Good news is we've not heard any reports of boats in the safety perimeter as the launch vehicle heads out over the Gulf of Mexico. So right now, T-minus 10 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting. Everything continues to go well for an on-time launch.
Now, today's test flight is taking place out of our Starbase facility in South Texas, and that test site has gone through a huge amount of development over the last couple of years.
One thing I want to point out, this is a great view from our drone. Not only can we see the pad, but in the fog, kind of in the distance, in the background and to the left of the pad, you can actually see our production facility, which is the other part of Starbase in addition to the launch pad.
Of course, as part of rapidly iterating with our test program, we're also rapidly iterating on our production system to produce Starships and Super Heavies. Last year, the Starbase team produced 4 Starship Super Heavy boosters and 5 Starships, along with their 200th Raptor 2 engine, and they're only scaling up from there, Kate.
Yeah, it's incredible to think that for 2023, production has 5 boosters and 8 Starships going. So it's incredible. And it's important to have that system fill in basically the manufacturing line so that we have product ready to go as soon as we're done with this test.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, I mean, we talked about how Starship is an order of magnitude more payload to orbit. But if you're going to go set up a base on the moon or Mars, you're going to need thousands of metric tons of propellants. And so you're going to need a fleet of vehicles that's capable of doing that.
Yeah, one thing to note, Starbase directly employs more than 1,800 employees. It's the largest employer in the area, in fact. And we're very thankful to Cameron County for being so supportive. This is a view from the Cameron County Amphitheater. And there's a crowd there, and you could tell by the energy here in Hawthorne as well that everyone's getting really exciting. I feel my own heart rate going up and up.
I know. It must be really, really exciting to go see this. And I mean, just the sheer amount of power on Starship, you're going to feel it down there. when
yeah.
this thing lifts off from
Oh,
the
yeah.
pad. We've actually got a great shot here of the natural surroundings around the pad. Oddly enough, most of the pads end up being around sort of wild locations like this.
Cape
Wild
Canaveral
locations
is a
like
famous
this.
example.
But coming up on T-minus 8 minutes, I think it's
Oh
another
yeah,
good time for check-in
the
with John.
environmentalists are gonna lose their crap
Shiva.
over this launch, bro.
T-minus
They're gonna
just over
oh,
8
man.
minutes to the first test flight of Starship.
Environmental Karens are gonna freak out.
Currently, we
over
are
Starship.
pressurizing second stage.
They tried to stop.
We
it.
are
There's
also
people in the
closing out
government who tried to
liquid
stop it.
oxygen
Well, not in the
and
government,
fuel
but there's,
header loads on the second stage. We're also getting ready for propellant
Ship
load
is closed
tank pressurization on the first
Ship
stage.
problems? You hear that?
In fact, we are just now closing out header
Oh,
tank
okay,
load
good.
on the second stage.
Oh, this is so cool. 8 minutes
Now with the header
left, guys.
tanks
This is
loaded
awesome.
and closed out, that means we're down to just the first stage to finish loading. That'll finish about T-minus 3 minutes. And at that point, when both stages are loaded, we will have the 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board. Now in the next few minutes, the guidance system will begin its final alignment for flight during a quiet period when the rocket's not doing anything. The automated flight termination system will be armed, and a final TVC checkout will be performed. Those are the engine wiggles, and hopefully we'll be able to see that with the cameras underneath the vehicle and maybe even the second stage engines.
Dude, that
There's a view
camera right
looking
there is gonna
underneath
get fried, dude.
the super heavy first stage with the 33 Raptor engines. Now, a reminder as we continue counting down, if we do need to hold, the point where we hold the clock would be at T-minus 40 seconds. We can pause there. Typically in the past, if we need a little bit more time to finish final checkouts or do some pressurization of the onboard storage tanks, that's where we would hold. But currently, we're not hearing a need to hold, so at 6 minutes, 27 seconds, everything looks good. And of course, Kate Shiva, as we get close, we're going to get into the engine ignition sequence of 33 Raptors, and that's going to be something new for everybody.
I cannot wait for that moment.
The last time they
for those of you that are
this
familiar
amount of
with how
engines,
we
last
launched
time
Falcon 9
humankind
rockets,
has launched-
you probably know that we light all 9 of those first stage Merlin 1D engines all at
last time
once.
they launched
It's
a
pretty
rocket with
different
this many
than what we
engines
do,
was the
or what we're
Soviet
attempting to
N1.
do today. We're
And,
actually
that
going to be
exploded every
igniting
time,
those
the
33
amount of
engines
engines it
in
has.
banks.
Let's hope that
or
the same thing doesn't
clusters,
happen
and
here.
that sequence
We'll see.
starts at T-minus 6 seconds.
Yeah, and the ignition sequence is a little bit different.
Oh, so cool
both
looking.
in terms of the timing and also the ignition method. So on Falcon 9, we use a chemical called T-Tab. It's a pyrophoric material, so that means when you mix the two together, it produces a flame that kicks off that green characteristic spark on Falcon 9 missions. But actually on Starship, we use electrical ignition systems. Many of those are integrated on the ground system here.
Oh,
and
yeah, that's true.
The electrical ignition, we start lighting the banks at T-minus 6 seconds, and then over the next 4 seconds, the 3 sets of banks will ignite and eventually bring the booster up to a thrust to weight greater than 1 and hopefully ascent.
Super exciting. Like we said, pretty different from our Falcon 9 launches, and so this will be the first time that any of us have gotten to see this type of integrated test flight with both the
5
Starship
minutes.
and the
5 minutes!
Everyone cheering as we get into T-minus 5 minutes.
We want to remind everyone that success today is anything.
Excitement guaranteed.
It looks fun down there.
It
I'm
sure
gonna go join them.
For today, success is anything that we learn that helps improve the future build
Elon
of
says
Starship.
that he'll be happy
we lift
if
off
it
and
doesn't
clear
blow
the
up
pad,
on the pad.
we're calling
That's what he
that a
says.
win.
He said.
A great shot of
he
the
said
pad
as long as we
there.
can use the
Great
tower
shot
again,
of the
he's
quick
happy.
disconnect on the second stage. You can see the frost line on the booster where that methane is fully topped up. I think we're
this is
just coming
awesome.
up on the last few minutes here of propellant fill on the booster. Now that quick disconnect is going to separate away as we actually get into the ignition sequence, but it's providing
Last time they had like
electrical
boats in the water,
connections now.
not over here, but like in
And,
a
also providing the
other
propellants that we're loading
river,
into
like
the
off
vehicle.
the coast, somewhere over
Yeah.
here.
We're just now under 4 minutes until liftoff of the Starship flight
Oh.
test. We've been following along for what honestly seems like days and days now, but
Oh,
really
yeah.
it kind of comes down to
I've been watching
years.
the development
It
of this
has
for
been a
2
long
years.
time
Ever
to get
since
to
the
where
S
we
and
are
A, I was like,
today.
this is cool.
Now,
I'm gonna keep an eye out on it. And now
we
it's an orbital ship
have
in
the
front of us.
opportunity to hold, if necessary, at 40 seconds, and we are able to hold there for about 15 minutes, or up to 15 minutes, and still be able to lift off.
Yeah, and that's a little
Cool,
bit different
cool.
from Falcon.
They
for
better not
the
do what they
propellant
did
sequence
with
on Falcon.
Terran
that,
1, where they decided
we
that
don't
their
have
first
the
launch
opportunity
they're
to
going to
hold, so
delay it
that's a
on
cool new
purpose
capability on
to
Starship.
see if it can handle it, and then
Right now, T minus
cause
3
issues
minutes,
and
10
take
seconds
off.
and counting. We got some great views from the drone. It's nice that the fog is slowly lifting. We get some of the blue
Oh, yeah.
skies, hopefully good views.
That would be awesome.
What we're waiting for right now
Woo-hoo, 2
is
minutes,
closeout
2
of
minutes,
propellant
guys, 2
loading
minutes.
on the first
3
stage.
minutes, actually.
That should be wrapping up here shortly. In fact, it looks like fuel fill and drain valves are coming closed. That means first stage is fully loaded, second stage fully loaded, and that 10 million pounds of propellant on board the Starship launch vehicle.
I want to take a quick moment to say that the crowd energy here is electric. I feel like it's Falcon Heavy test demo all over again.
And hopefully you'll hear us as we get into the plus count. But right now, next activity is coming up. The flight termination system arms at T minus 2 minutes. Thrust vector control checkouts at T minus 2 minutes. And then after that, major activity will be the T minus 40-second gate. There's a view looking up at the 33 Raptor engines.
I'm kind of anxious,
There are
really.
20 engines in a circle on the outside. And as Shiva said earlier, 13 engines on the center. Those are the ones
Oh,
that
there it
go
goes.
and steer the vehicle.
It's not, none of the engines are gimbling yet.
I don't think I've ever seen someone so excited for TVC wiggles.
140.
Love this view. These are the 33 Raptor engines at the base of the Super Heavy booster.
Oh, they're moving.
I think we can see those wiggles now.
Oh, that's so cool, guys. That's so cool.
Currently inside 90 seconds. Next major activity, T minus 40 seconds. That is a gate, a decision point. We're waiting. Possibility the propulsion team may need a few minutes. Flight termination system is armed for flight.
Let's
We're
go.
getting ready for T minus 1 minute and counting.
Oh, let's go 59, 57. Oh, it's counting down now, guys. Excitement guaranteed. The last 8 minutes, they're gonna light the engines.
Next, we'll see as we get past T minus 40 seconds for final checks of the vehicle.
This is awesome, dude. You won't believe how excited I am. 38, 37, 36, 35, 33, 32, 31, 30, 27, 26, 40, 39, 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, 33. Oh my gosh.
Okay, you can see the clock
Okay.
is recycled.
Oh, they recycled it. Never mind. What happened?
Flight director has called a hold. We are recycling. For the moment, we'll see where they move the clock back to. They
It's
could
probably a
hold at
test.
T minus 40
It's
seconds.
probably a
They
test.
could go to an earlier point. Give us a minute to listen into the nets, and we'll see if we can get you more information to share.
Imagine they found a last minute issue. Or they're probably just testing if they can hold it. That's my guess. That's my guess. Because when they did it with the Terran R, they hold it on purpose to see if the rocket can hold can enter a hold. So it's probably a test. There's probably no real issues. Is that sound coming from the booster?
John Innsbrucker again here at the Hawthorne webcast desk. We're holding a T-minus 40 seconds. What we've heard so far is we have a couple of issues we're working.
Oh no.
One is the booster tank pressurization. Final pressurization was just a little bit long. That's not unusual. We've held at T-minus 40 seconds before to pressurize. That appears to have been resolved.
Great.
At the same time on the second stage, they're working some final purging. We should know very shortly if that is cleared and if we'll continue the countdown.
Great.
Everyone, especially that person, is excited to keep going. Like John said, we
Great.
should know shortly if we are able to continue. But as we mentioned before, we are able to hold up to 15 minutes and still be able to lift off today.
Yeah, on Falcon 9, it's a little bit different. Once we start propellant loading, we pretty much have to go at the targeted time. Otherwise, the propellants can warm up and we may not have the performance for that particular mission profile. It's a little bit different on
And
Starship.
folks, if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
it looks like they're clearing all the flags and we're going to release at T-minus 40 seconds.
Great.
That is amazing news.
Amazing.
Team working quickly through their issues on first and second stages.
And I'm sure all of the rehearsals and simulations that they've been doing have prepared them to evaluate this data quickly to try to get us in for today's launch attempt.
For those of you just joining, we have a brief hold at the T-minus 40 second mark. The team is resolving one issue with the bleed purge on the stage 2 Raptors. Like John just said, the teams are quickly working that, and it looks like the flags are being cleared as we speak.
go!
So we should be able to resume the launch countdown any moment now.
And it's worth noting on Starship that once we resume the countdown, it restarts from the 40-second period, and then we keep
Exactly.
going unless another condition pops up. So stick around because Starship could be going here real soon.
Don't walk away, that's for sure. Amazing views here coming to us from Starbase, Texas.
Cheering to close the start again.
All right, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, we have excitement, guys. Here we go. Oh, it's not taking off. Wait, never mind, it is. Oh my gosh! Starship is the most powerful rocket ever built now. Let's go!
Zero post-launch flight operation.
Oh, look at it go! Look at that purple flame! Oh!
Booster after chamber pressure.
Oh! This is real! This is not render, guys!
43 seconds into the test flight of the inaugural Starship vehicle.
This is awesome.
Tower cleared, we're into pitch over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Propulsion reports first stage engines nominal.
Yeah,
What
look
a
at this.
sight from the ground cameras at Starbase.
Nominal.
We're flying at twice the thrust of the Saturn V heading to
Taking
space.
it to Mars one day. Oh, that's awesome!
Acquisition of signal, surface 15.
We're throttled down and throttled back
I
up.
don't think you just look over it.
Going through the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Uh-oh, the engines are cutting out. That's not good. They have several engine
As the
failures, but
velocity
it's, hey,
increases,
it's fine.
the density of the atmosphere is decreasing.
Max Q.
Listening
so
stress
cool.
on the vehicle.
Look at
The
that.
call out. Max Q now.
Max Q! Let's go! That is so cool. Yeah, you can see that they lost some
Continuing to
engines,
watch
but
the
finally
first
they have like
stage as we head down
30 more
range.
engines. Oh.
100
They have a
seconds
graph
into
to show
flight.
us the engines. Oh, that's sick, actually. They They lost
Our next
around
major
4,
activity
5,
is going to
6
be
minutes.
shutdown of the first stage. Houston Tracking Station now acquiring the vehicle.
Oh, that's so awesome.
With shutdown, we will get separation of Starship and Super Heavy
It's actually
and
happening.
ignition of the Starship engines. When Starship separates, we light up 6 engines in a staggered sequence. And if all goes well, those 6 engines will burn for almost 6.5 minutes. Onboard view from Starship. And there's views of the Raptor engines on the second stage.
Oh,
As we
this
prepare
is
for
awesome,
stage separation.
dude.
Now, after stage separation, the first stage will flip and begin a boost back maneuver for landing in the Gulf.
Look at the smoke, dude. That's insane.
Continuing to fly, 2 minutes 40 seconds. Let's get ready for main engine cutoff.
Booster engine cut off.
Beginning to flip for stage separation.
Oh, let's hope it works. Did it not work? Oh no. Did stage separation not work?
As of right now, we are awaiting stage separation, where Starship should separate from
It's
the
not,
Super
though.
Heavy booster.
Yeah, Kate, right now it looks like we saw the start of the flip, but obviously we're seeing from the ground cameras the entire Starship stack continuing to rotate. We should have had separation by now. Obviously, this is does not appear to be a nominal situation.
Nope.
Yeah,
Nope.
it does appear to be spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
Oh.
And there, as you saw, as we promised, an
Unfortunately, it didn't go to
exciting
space.
end to the Starship inaugural integrated test flight.
Well done, SpaceX. Well done.
Everyone here absolutely pumped to clear the pad and make it this far into the test flight, the first integrated flight of the booster and the Starship vehicle.
Live view there of our control center at Starbase, which we refer to as Star Command. As we said before, obviously we wanted to make it all the way through, but to get this far, honestly, is amazing.
Well, if you're just joining us, Starship just experienced what we call a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or a RUD, during ascent. But now this was a development test. This is the first test flight of Starship, and the goal was to gather the data, and as we said, clear the pad and get ready to go again. So you never know exactly what's going to happen.
True.
But as we promised,
It's a test
excitement
vehicle
is
in the end,
guaranteed.
guys, really.
And Starship gave us a rather spectacular end to what was truly an incredible test thus far.
For sure.
As
for
we
sure.
mentioned at the start of today's program, any and all the data that we collected during the test is going to help us with further development of Starship, and it's going to improve the vehicle's reliability as SpaceX seeks to make life multiplanetary.
I can't
it's
wait
really
to see
worth
what
noting that the flight path was
twist on
designed to be
Elon. I
over
wonder what
water
Elon's
and
gonna
all
say
the
about
air
this
and
whole
sea space.
situation.
Along with that flight path and those surrounding areas were cleared in advance of the test. And of course, we're going to be coordinating with local authorities for the recovery operations.
But honestly, what an exciting morning. Oh my gosh. We had a successful liftoff from Starbase, Texas at 8:28 a.m. Central Time. We cleared the tower, which honestly was our only hope.
Yeah.
We cleared the tower, and all the data that we collected all the way through all those Raptor, those 33, although I think we saw that 3 Raptor engines were out. But we got all that data, and we got so far as to hoping to see the Starship, the second stage, separate from the first stage, the Super Heavy booster. And unfortunately, we didn't make that happen, but that's okay. It was the first integrated launch, and honestly, today was amazing.
Absolutely incredible day. We made it through a number of those initial test objectives with getting booster ascent, getting all the way through the countdown, working some issues at the end. Like, really fantastic day.
Got through the gate at T-minus 40 seconds on the second try. Everything released, the hold downs, the quick disconnect arms, everything moves out of the way. And then we got the vehicle off of the pad, through max Q, all the way up to stage separation, even starting into the prep for stage sep. And then, as we say, a lot of excitement.
Yep. Honestly, my face has had a smile on it since liftoff, and now my face hurts. Now, since we don't have any insights on the cause of our rapid unscheduled disassembly at this point, we're going to end our webcast here. Teams will continue to review the data and work toward our next flight test. But before we go, a big congrats to the entire SpaceX team on an exciting first integrated flight test.
All right, I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I got to take one of the foreign exchange students to school. Exciting day, though. Exciting day. Oh, I can't wait to check Twitter to see what Twitter's saying about this whole